Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burr Network. Welcome to Positive Fandom. I am RM here. And of course, tonight I have with me Julian Mushkin. Julian, how are you?
I'm doing great, RM. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited to be here because, Julian, after three videos about the first three seasons of For All Mankind, here we are now at starting season 4 for All Mankind. Julian, I can't believe it's already here. I just am so pleased as punch and so excited to start talking about episode 1 of season 4 of For All Mankind. Julian, did you get a chance to watch the episode?
I did indeed. This morning I got a chance to watch it, and I was very pleased with what I saw.
Yes, as was I, Julian. There's so much to talk about in this episode, and is often the case with the first episode. It's kind of an addition where they bring you up to speed. Each season is approximately 10 years further in the future, and certainly this one certainly told us a lot from 1996 all the way. I think when the episode starts, it might be something like 2003, but Julian, we certainly do see a lot of what happens in the new season, this new era of where we learn so much that's going on in the future of the space industry, but also the future of business and the future of, a lot of politics going on in this episode. Were you surprised to see that now there's this new developed technology, Julian, called plasma propulsion, where they can travel at incredible speeds and they don't need a window anymore in order to get to planets? What did you think about that, Julian?
Um, I didn't find it too surprising. I thought that they'd already been talking about it in the last season. I think that it was under development, so it was cool to see that they've got it, and that it's going to open up their windows for how soon they can get out amongst the asteroid belts and Mars, and so that was kind of exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And of course, I'm so happy. One of the things that you and I both love about this series is that we do see real progress happening at a speed which I think would have been possible had more attention or more money been thrown at the space program. And certainly, we also am able to see that now at this point, everybody has kind of returned back from Mars after Kelly has her baby, kind of makes it back home. We do see everybody who's returned back to Mars. But Julian, I noticed one person is missing from that picture in episode 1, and it's Danny Stevens. Julian, what do you think has happened to him?
Didn't they kind of exile him to the North Korean capsule when we last saw him in the previous season? I thought that was kind of what they did. So I don't know. I have this feeling that somehow he's still going to be alive, but I don't know. Maybe, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that. It is kind of strange.
Yeah.
About what was happening with him. They pretty much caught us up with everything else. So yeah, and of course, Ed Baldwin is still out in Mars area doing stuff. Whether he went back or stayed, I'm not sure. And the Russian commander of the Russian trip to Mars, he was out there still too, working as his partner. It's obvious that they've showed us a time lapse of the buildup of the presence on Mars. So we know that they're planning on trying to mine the local asteroids for their mineral resources.
Exactly, Julian. There is this expedition and drive to mine asteroids, and I absolutely love it. It feels it feels amazing to know that there's this extra element going on, and we see an incredible moment in the show when the first man ever gets to step onto an asteroid, Julian, and it was very exciting to see this. Certainly it was amazing. And certainly there was some smack talk going on during even the procedure. But it seems like this crew and, having Ed Baldwin still there, he's clearly a bit older now, has a very interesting dynamic where they understand each other. We saw, though, some signs of Ed Baldwin not quite being himself and maybe even having some kind of condition. And what did you make of that, Julian?
I think age is probably catching up with him. He's been out in space a lot. He's been exposed to more cosmic rays than a lot of people should ever probably get. And we know also that he has already been suffering. We saw in the last season that he was taking like some sort of steroidal injections to help with his hip and things like that. I have a feeling he may be concerned that going back into normal gravity would be detrimental to his health. And I think that that's my thought. He's thinking about, it's like, I don't think I can go back to 1G ever again. So because it would be really painful for him. And I don't think he wants to. He doesn't envision himself as the type of guy who's going to be stuck having mobility trouble, in his old age. So being in space, I think, is where he wants to be.
Absolutely, Julian. And one very interesting thing that we also learned about in the beginning of the show was this movie, another movie that I'm dying to see called The Race to Mars, Julian. I want to see that film. How about you? I'm eager to see that. It sounds so good. I'm ready for that film, and it's going to be amazing. But I also think it's very interesting that they have a reality show called Moon Miners, which certainly is so much fun. Julian, they're enjoying and having a laugh at, putting things like this into the mainstream. And now I'm almost thinking, Julian, that space travel is mainstream in this alternate reality. What do you think?
RM, on my end, I'm getting some really bad connection, so I wasn't able to actually hear what you were saying. It was really broken up.
Okay, I'll say it again. Julian, we certainly have seen some very interesting developments in this alternate reality of the future. And one of the things that was very interesting are reality shows. And of course, we saw a blip of Survivor and the Osbournes. I watched the Osbournes when that came out. But we also are seeing a show called Moon Miners as a reality TV show. And it's almost making me wonder whether now at this point, space exploration has become quite mainstream. Do you think that's the case in 2003, where we pick up on?
I think they're certainly trying to make a case for it. I still think it's too soon. I'm kind of not surprised. I mean, we have some new characters that are introduced into the story. Someone who was what do they call it? Worked on an oil rig, and because of the new energy stuff, has lost his work and is having trouble trying to find work. And it's obvious that they're looking for lots of people to go work on the moon. So he's taking his chance at trying to get a job to go to the moon. So it does sound like it's certainly, I don't know. I kind of am uncomfortable with how blasé it seems about going off. It's like, oh, I'm going to go work on the moon. It's like you're going into a place that is so hazardous that it's like one mistake and you're done. So I think it's too soon, but they're certainly trying to make it seem like it's very, very commonplace now.
They really are. And certainly, I think that at some point, this rush to mining and this desire to make a lot of money, we saw even a situation where companies were suing. I guess maybe it was Helios or the governments for for creating a monopoly on being able to mine on the moon. And certainly, that's something that I could see Exxon or any other company complain about, saying that we have a right to be up there too and mine if we have the ability to do that. And it goes to antitrust. We've seen this before, and they make it up there. So there's this push for miners. And we noticed that Helios, which is the company that developed this new plasma engine, is looking for people. I love the advertisement, Julian, that they have for people who want to go to the moon and also to Mars. And I think it is really interesting. However, I was surprised in a sense of how many people who do actually want to go up there. Julian, do you believe that it is realistic that there would be so many people who want to take that trip to the moon or even to the Mars?
Based on the amount of people I know and you know that are imagination connoisseurs in the world, I think there'd be lots of people who would want to be able to get into something like that. Whether they would be fit to do something like that is another question indeed. And so, and yes, that's a dangerous proposition, you know. And we saw in this episode just how easily things can go from, you know, boom to bust. When they try to pull or push the asteroid into orbit of Mars, we saw exactly what went wrong, where we lose two of our astronauts. One of them, Korolev. Was that his name? Korolev?
I think it's I don't remember both astronauts' name. I remember Kuznetsov.
Kuznetsov, that's it. I knew it started with a K. I couldn't remember exactly what, yeah. Kuznetsov. Yeah, who had been the Russian commander and had developed an obvious friendship with Ed. And they have issues with the tension cables, pushing on one. Yeah, if anybody's tried to push like a basketball along the ground with a pencil, that's kind of what we had happening there as they tried to push this asteroid towards Mars. And the asteroid wanted to go off on different trajectories, and set up a situation where they were going to lose the tension cables. Kuznetsov and the other Helios person went out to try and fix it, and they both ended up dying. Just like that. I was kind of surprised that they didn't waste any time letting us know space wants to kill you very rapidly. So.
Yeah, it is interesting. And as I was watching it, I remember telling my mother, and of course, watching episodes of The Expanse where they use nets to move asteroids around, or at least blow them up first and then try and gather the pieces. But, you know, these guys are far from that. This is the first time they've even set foot on an asteroid, let alone try and corral one for mining purposes to set down either on the moon or on Mars. So certainly that what I'm suggesting is not an option, but it certainly was interesting to see them try and put pegs or, you know, drill into the ground of the asteroid. And I think all of us knew this wasn't going to work. However,
I was really surprised to see that they were trying to push it instead of pull it.
Yeah, I was curious about that too. So it was pushing. I thought, why aren't they dragging it? You know, towing it.
Yeah.
This is that particular thing. But then I thought maybe there's a private company that has built the structure and wants it executed this way, and they're just following our orders in that regard. I'm not sure, honestly.
It's possible that the setup, that the engines themselves, that they might not have felt that they would be able to create something that they could run out the back of the ship, that the propulsion, that the would have damaged whatever it was that they were using to try and pull. So maybe it's just because of the way that the ship is configured. It wasn't a possibility. I don't know.
No, this is a good point, and I think that it's a good debate for future reference. And it'd be a nice project to figure out a good argument either way as to which is the best method in this type of environment. And there's a lot of variables, but it is really interesting to see how it worked out. And like I said, I'm not surprised it collapsed. However, it was hard to watch these two astronauts meet an early death here, especially when I feel like it could be avoided. And we knew, and I think you knew too, Julian, that there was going to be an investigation that has put a lot of eyes on Ed, and apparently a lot of eyes on Daniel Poole, who we can see right here in the picture. Were you surprised that they reached out to her in this episode?
No, not at all. You know, if Baldwin's still out there doing stuff, then there's no reason that she couldn't. I mean, she was like, you know what? I've had enough. I need to retire. Maybe she had premonitions. I don't know. But she is trying to make a life, away from being out in space, but she has that experience that they need, and it's also a PR move. They need somebody with her experience and good publicity, good feeling among a lot of people. You put her back in charge, and the popular opinion is going to be, well, here's somebody who knows what they're doing, and so that's probably why they chose to get her back up there. And she's had to deal with Ed for all these many years. Hi, Bob. She's been with him since Jamestown. She knows him, and if anybody's going to try and figure out what's going on with him, it's her. So
you make such a good point, Julian. And I just love how she talks about that and the experiences she had. She was very clear to talk to the new administrator, the new NASA administrator, how Kutsinov, or I know I'm saying his name wrong, the Russian astronaut, was the first man on an asteroid, and unfortunately who met his early death, how much she relied on him, like he was her rock. And were you surprised to hear that this was the case? Or would you have imagined that she would have said that Ed was her rock?
No, I didn't find anything. I think that was in keeping with their character, because she had that time where, they were who rescued them on the race to Mars. They had more time with each other, and there was more of a we're in this together type thing. Ed was kind of being, stuck for a while, being controlled by the early Helios. We're doing this just so we can win type of thing. And there was also that competition between the two of them, and so she always kind of felt that he had, if it came to push to shove, he was always in it for Ed, not for the team most of the time, I think. I think we've lost you again.
I'm sorry? Are you sure you've lost? Can you hear me, Julian?
RM?
Yes.
I've lost you on the stream here. I've lost you on the stream.
I think I'm still here.
I can hear you, but
I can hear you though.
Yeah, your picture comes in and out every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a lot of lag going on here.
Okay. I'm not seeing lag on my end or on the broadcast, so I hope it clears up as you're watching it. But certainly, it is very interesting to talk about this, Julian, because what I've also noticed was the administrator who's there has been criticized by Daniel Poole for making cuts to NASA, something that I never thought would happen. How do you think that's affected the effectiveness of the program?
Um, it probably created the situation where, by making cuts that they seem more beneficial to the program, is probably what set up the conditions for the accident that they had with the astronaut, is what I think. And I'm surprised that he was talking about all these cuts. It seemed like NASA was flush and doing really well off the spin-offs and the patenting of all the materials and everything that they'd been doing. So I was kind of surprised to hear that suddenly they're having budgetary issues. It's like, why? But I also see his point that, with this group of 7 countries, that are on this consortium together trying to get everything to work, that all this money is coming in, and whenever you have huge amounts of money, you have, chances for grafts, and of course people are not going to be as smart with spending, and because they think, oh, we've got all this money. So he comes in as some, economic whiz for, big business, and is going to turn it around, and he wants to show that it's being done effectively. So there you go.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I also want to talk about another industrialist or person who had a huge presence and effect over season 2. And of course, I think his name is Kev. Um, and in this season, we learn that after Helios, he's going into robotics. Julian, do you think we're going to see robotics play a part in the space program this season?
I would not be surprised that he would create some sort of thing that is going to go wrong and cause another problem for our heroes to have to overcome. That seems to be his role in this ongoing story. That's what I think.
Yeah, when they heard them say that, or at least they had a headline where he's involved in robotics, I got very excited, and I thought these guys are going to go out there thinking they're going to make a bunch of money on mining, and then he's going to create robots that'll automate the whole thing without humans even having to be on either the moon or Mars. And I thought to myself, this could be a big problem for everybody. But he's looking at it from the point of view of this is the next step. It'll increase productivity, but I think a lot of people might not like that. So I think that he's always going to be somebody who will always be in the picture when it comes to developing new technology and certainly having an effect over the program. He's such an incredible engineer. It's almost impossible to think that he wouldn't have some kind of presence in this new environment that is presenting itself with challenges and is about to have a shakeup with Poole going back to the station. Now, there's another character who we were not surprised, and I can't remember if the episode started with her, but of course, it wouldn't be an episode For All Mankind without our famous, our favorite, let's say, I don't even know how to say mission specialist expert, or the person in charge at the station, or I don't know how to describe her position, but of course, Margot. And initially, Julian, when I saw the scene and when they brought Margot up, I thought for sure that when she put on her boots and her hat and she had her I guess it's like a hot water bottle and her coat on, that she was going to be walking right into the Russian space center and be a director or something. I was surprised to see that all she did, or at least what it seemed like, was to be sitting on a bench. And I thought to myself, no, this can't be. This can't be. You mean to tell me all these years she's just been sitting on a bench? 10 years, Julian. Oh my gosh. Were you shocked by this?
Not quite shocked. It's very unfortunate, but yeah, she was kind of in a situation where she had no out. they offered her, getting, we'll take you in so you won't be, tried on espionage. Everybody thinks she's dead in the Western world, and she's living out this kind of non-existence. She's trying to get a handle. It's obvious she's learned Russian very well. She's gotten into the swing of life there in the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union has kind of just put her on a shelf. And she's very frustrated with this, especially when she sees things start to go wrong with the asteroid mission and stuff like that. She wants to help, and they think she's out of date. So it's a very frustrating situation for her. Now, I'm very. She tries to go see the director of Roscosmos, and it's like, don't do that. We'll call you. Don't call us.
Yeah, they really give her kind of this, wag of the finger, situation, and certainly she didn't deserve that. I was very surprised to see that she was so cast off by them, and also it comes to a point where they even challenge her, Julian. They verbally challenge her about whether or not she's still even worth anything or valuable. And this isn't the first time they've said that or she's heard that. She heard it from her friend from the previous season, where he had made a comment about how she's not needed anymore and her role, she can't do anything else for them. I was quite surprised at the boldness of that statement when it's pretty clear that she is one of the most talented engineers that NASA has ever produced. Um, I think that they felt they could just put her in this corner, but it looks like she has a friend, Julian. It looks like she has a friend who sent her a message. It looked like a phone number on that message to me, Julian. Who do you think is on the other line?
I I I really don't know. I mean, I suppose it could be the guy that she tried to help all those many times. I can't remember his name, but there could be some sort of a power shakeup happening behind the scenes that might happen shortly. And so it sounds like there are people that are not happy. We hear some people muttering about Gorbachev, and they're not happy with the way the Soviet Union seems to be running now, and so we'll see. I'm intrigued to find out what she may find herself involved with. I have this strange feeling that at some point this season, the West is going to find out that she is still alive, either through espionage or something like that. They're going to realize that she's alive, and because it's like something's going to happen where she's going to have to be instrumental in helping them figure out how they're going to fix it.
Absolutely. And I think that she's aware that she is invaluable to the program. And certainly she will prove herself, as you said. I also think it is very interesting that she's still being watched. When she left her apartment, she looked at the corner and they were watching her. Julian, what are they expecting her to do? She's clearly been, not doing anything out of the ordinary. Why are eyes on her so hard when she's, living there? Do they think she's a double agent or something?
We're talking about the Soviet Union. Of course they do. They're gonna keep on checking on her until she's dead. They know that she's somebody who gave, information from her own country. It's like, how can we trust her? We can't trust her. She betrayed her own country. Why would we trust her, right? So that's the way it goes with stuff like that. So they're going to be watching her. They don't trust her. They want to, and somebody's got to, it's their job. It's like, hey, keep an eye on her. We need to know everything. Who's talking to her, who she's seeing, who she's talking. Her phones are probably bugged. So so they can keep total tabs on her.
Absolutely. And finally, we get to see Alita, who is still obviously at NASA, seems to be doing well, but then all of a sudden she isn't. Julian, it looks like she's having these strange flashbacks. What do you think's going on with Alita right now?
Alita is suffering PTSD, obviously involving the bombing and how that went down, and probably a lot of other. She thinks her friend is dead. She thinks Margot's dead. She also thinks that Margot had betrayed them all. So she's has issues that she needs to deal with on that. And now she's seeing things go wrong with a mission, and it's triggered a PTSD episode. I hope that she's going to try and get it fixed soon, that she's going to be able to get some therapy for that, but it's been years and I don't know what's going on with that. So
Well, she brought her son to, bring your kid to work day. And, there she is. And she's kind of, realizing that, she's doing this. She's still working propulsion or thrust, which is what they're calling it at this point. And I think it's really interesting as to how it's come to a point where whatever she's going through seems to be affecting her work. She walks off of the floor, like she's no longer there while they're doing literally responding to an emergency situation, Julian. She literally walks off the floor and the mission commander says, Alita, where are you going? She goes home. Alita goes home and she's not even picking up phone calls. Julian, this is really making me wonder what's going to happen, because it's almost as if, this is a woman who loves her job. It's almost as if this whole thing is affecting her ability to not only respond to her job, but she doesn't even seem like herself. And I'm really worried what's going to happen to her, because at that time, say in 2003, people weren't talking about mental health the way that we talk about mental health now. I don't even know what she could have done at a job with something like this affecting her. And I hope that she can kind of overcome what's happening to her. I know it's devastating to her, but I'm also really concerned that even if she were to tell someone, maybe it would fall on deaf ears. What do you think, Julian?
Well, I don't know if it would fall on deaf ears, but they would probably remove her from her position for a while she tries to get a handle on it. And that, it's possible that at this point in her life, her work is really all she's kind of got that she's holding on to. We don't know. I mean, her home life seemed kind of chaotic in the last season. There was definitely, she was working an awful lot, and the guy she had been with, that he was not happy with that. I'm not sure if that's the same. Is that the same guy, the husband?
It looks like the same man.
Yeah. So it looks like they finally, made some headway there, but now she's starting to go through stuff. I think he knows something's going on, but is letting her kind of guide the situation by how are you, and I'm like, oh, I'm fine, type of a thing, where he's like, I don't think you really are, but I'm gonna let you, we'll go with that for now so we don't get into an argument. So I'm curious to see who it is that's actually calling her. I couldn't see on the screen if it said, on the phone screen, if it said who was calling.
Right. So. Well, I know that her husband in the episode said it was work who was calling. Yeah. And I don't know whether it was or not. I'd have to go back and look at the episode. So you make a good point about this. And certainly, I think that when it comes to what's going on, this particular disaster, which I'm calling it a disaster, seems to affect a lot of people and is going to change, I think, the way that the program is approached now, Julian. I'm getting the sense that this disaster, this accident, is going to have a profound effect on the program going forward. What do you think?
Well, certainly, I think it's going to be. I mean, they lost the whole derrick that they were using to push the thing. That was a mess. They lost 2 people, and who knows how far that it set them back. They're having to send a new commander to Mars, to the base on Mars, which is going to take some time, and they're going to have to send replacement crew, and I'm sure with the consortium looking at, time is money type of a thing now. It's not all for the exploration; it's for the bucks, and so that puts a real big different spin on how people are going to look at this. It's going to put more pressure on them to hasten getting things done, and that's the type of situation where you just get more accidents. So, but they're also going to have to look at what happened. Yeah, you're right. They're probably going to blame Ed. He was the one who was told not to, just to stay put and don't, aggravate the situation. And then he let his pal go out and try and fix the situation when he was ordered not to. So he's probably going to take the fall for this thing. And there'll be a lot. Hopefully, they'll look at why did it fail? Why did the structure fail? What happened there? I think it'll be some sort of the way NASA stopped after Challenger and said, we need to find out how this happened.
Wow, that is very interesting, and I think it is interesting to look and see what actions they'll take. And of course, I agree with you 100%. I think that Ed is going to have a lot of explaining to do. We already know an investigation is taking place. The administrator was very clear to Poole that they need to fix this and fix it now. And so that certain sense of urgency was able to get Poole, who was kind of reluctant to want to go back up in space, and I couldn't blame her for that. She spent a lot of time up there. She was living up there with Stevens and Baldwin quite rough initially, and now that it should be kind of her years where she gets to enjoy this. Now she's kind of been asked to go back into a situation that might not be ideal, and I'm sure that's something she's thinking about. But what's even more interesting about this. And here we have Ed, and I think the makeup they did with Ed might be the best one that I've seen so far in the show. What I think is really interesting is that Ed has the opportunity to come back. He's supposed to come back, but he has this attitude where it seems like he doesn't want to come back. Julian, why is he telling Kelly that he feels he needs to be there for the transition so it's smooth when we all know he's lying? Why doesn't Ed want to go back to Earth?
I think it's what we explained earlier. I think he thinks that his body's not going to be able to take 1G again, but there's also the emotional issues of going back and facing the fact that Karen's not there, that she's dead from the blast, and that pretty much a lot of his life is gone that he had on Earth. Other than Kelly and the grandson, he doesn't feel a lot of attachment for whoever's back on Earth anymore. Even Molly, who he had a strong relationship with, as two like-minded astronauts, the way they attacked life and stuff, she's gone because of the blast, and so I don't think he feels attached to Earth. I don't think that he feels that that's his place. Maybe he feels like he's somewhat to blame for what happened with Danny also. He kind of tried to get him to come back. He allowed him to come back on the Mars mission, the Helios Mars mission, and that caused a huge mess up. And we haven't even seen the what's he dealing with about that, right? So I think he's just running away from dealing with all the stuff that he feels responsible for, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, of course, you mentioned Danny again, and I think There's another person in the chat who was asking about what happened, and I'm assuming, Jim, you mean what happened to Danny Stevens. Of course, there's a picture of Danny Stevens right here, and of course, the last time that we actually saw Danny, let's say, alive, was in season 3, where he was exiled to stay on the Korean. Um, I guess it was like a vessel or whatever that the Korean astronaut landed. Of course, he was the first man on Mars, but Danny is asked to stay there, and we get all these hints, Julian, about, Danielle Poole says, I don't know whether I want to go up there after everything that happened with Danny. And so there's a lot of speculation. As I said to you, Julian, the picture in the beginning of the story shows a photograph of all the astronauts that came back from the mission, after, Kelly goes back home, and then they all come back about a year or two later. And Danny is not in that photograph of the astronauts who returned. So I was curious as to what happened to him, whether he's still up in Mars, what's going on with him. So it's not sounding too great at this point. Let's keep our fingers crossed that things are okay. But what I can tell you is what happened to his brother, the other Stevens boy who was involved in that terrible terrorist, domestic terrorism uh, blast against NASA, that which blew up their building and killed so many people. In the introduction, they talk about him having a plea bargain, Julian. Are you surprised that they are showing some sympathy towards the other Stevens boy in light of what happened?
Um, no, I'm not. The way we see these news cycles and the way media spins things, it's I'm certain, based on the popular opinion towards their parents who were heroes for their sacrifice on saving Jamestown, that people would just assume that he has had to deal with that, and that he wasn't thinking clearly when he made the decisions that he made. So I'm not too surprised that they gave him a plea deal, especially since he did try and alert them when he realized that he had screwed up. um, I wonder if he will show up later on in the season, if we'll see more of his story. It's interesting to see Danielle being so close to Danny's wife and child. We see him at that birthday party, I think it is, when we first see them, and they're having a party together. And um, you don't know. It's like, what is she feeling? Are they under the apprehension that Danny's dead, or that he died there, or that he's just gone? I mean, how would she feel about them making that decision? How would Danny's wife feel about them just saying, "Oh well, he's not coming back because he screwed up"? It's like, what?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think Daniel Poole makes a good case for the idea of having to deal with somebody. She, first of all, she had to deal with his father, which we all remember, in the previous season, and then having to deal, with the son right after that. And she talked, like she was very understanding, as many of the people who really care about these boys. To be honest with you, Julian, I get the sense that a lot of people care about what happens to these two boys. So there's a lot, I think, invested even just in morale. They don't want anyone to have, sort of a bad outcome because of the program. And unfortunately, Jimmy, who's pictured here, represents that, let's say the worst case scenario of what can happen in this situation. Certainly not anything that I think most people would fall victim to, but he was kind of victimized from what they explained, this manipulation that happened to him. And let's hope that he can kind of recover from that and not kind of go to a dark place. His brother, too, obviously was greatly affected by the death of their parents. I think that's what really spurred this, Julian, is this death of both of their parents at a time when they were not expecting that to happen. and at a very important stage in their lives. It's absolutely devastating, despite the fact that their parents are heroes. I mean, I'm sure that doesn't matter to them at all. They just really would have liked to still have had their mother and father around. So it is something to think about. And certainly, I don't know whether or not we are going to see him again, but I have a feeling, like you said, they made a point of letting us know what the outcome for him was. And I think that that was important for us to kind of have that closure, in a sense. We need to know certain things. And the show does such a great job of making sure that things are addressed that we've seen in previous seasons. Julian, what do you think about that?
Uh, well, it's part of their effective storytelling that they keep us, engaged. They keep us reminding us of how things from the past are tying in with things in the present of the story, and so I just think they're doing a wonderful job telling these stories.
I agree too, Julian, and I think that they could have gone a number of ways with the show, and they didn't have to do things like that. Here's the phone, but I don't think I can see who it is. It says incoming call NASA, so I'll just share it. Uh,
No,
it's kind of a general. It's a general. It doesn't say anyone's name. Can I make it bigger? Oh,
uh,
there.
there, there we go. Yeah, I was watching it on my iPad this morning, so I didn't have as big of a screen to see it on.
Absolutely, Julian. And certainly, I think we all can feel and sympathize with poor Alita going through this entire thing. There are also very interesting things about, and I think Darth Plato brought up something about how in the story we do hear Al Gore does actually become president, and they also talk about an end to the Cold War. What do you think about that, Julian? Are the Russians and the Americans really as tight as they say they are in this alternate reality? Is it true?
Um, it sounds like, from what we can gather, like when Margot is out and about doing stuff, the man on the street type of thing, it sounds like there's some rumblings about how this glasnost, which is what they called it, which is the name of the episode, that this openness that the Russians have started because of the events and how they are getting together to help with. They are clearly, the senior partners. Russia and U.S. are the senior partners of this business group, this consortium, and we also see that in some of the side pieces that were put out to kind of give us an interim. These are the things that happened in the interim. Yes, the economic boom in the USSR. Yes, we see this in the beginning of the show also, that it's and it looks like there's some grumblings about, this, all this Western decadence, making its way into the Soviet Union, which, yeah, it's having a trouble. It's kind of, two opposing economic theories of how to run a country, and they are running right into each other. And I don't know. It's interesting to see how it's working under still complete USSR, as opposed to what happened when the USSR fell apart. You know, I'm wondering, are we going to see something like that? Is the economic situation going to be such? I don't think so, because it seems like they're benefiting a lot more. The situation in our world, that was that economically the Soviet Union was in a tailspin because of Chernobyl and a lot of other stuff that was happening in the world. The space race, they had failed, and they couldn't keep up uh, with that technologically. there was lots of stuff that was happening that was they were trying to outproduce militarily, and that kind of put a bust on their economy also. So those were things that helped kind of dissolve the Soviet Union, and now we have a total opposite. Since they were the first ones on the moon, and they were the ones who were first with this, that, and the other, and now this consortium, they are seeing this huge uptick in their economy, and that usually is success. That's usually what keeps a country going. So we'll see what happens. I'm no economic, pro.
Neither am I. I just like seeing the pictures of it all because I do remember, and I'm sure you do, when the wall fell, how different things had changed, even just within a few years, Julian, when it came to consumerism in that country. And that was maybe even some of the most fascinating things I'd ever seen, where they kind of like they almost showed it in a way that it seemed like people could just do whatever they wanted to do now, and they could go and do things. And I think it did kind of give a sense of freedom, at least from our point of view. Like they have this freedom to go do what they want, but we can see that Margot doesn't have that freedom. So clearly things are not as free as they appear. This new age, although we can see on the chart, they had a chart in the beginning of the story where the economy of the US was up, and then of course the economy of Russia was skyrocketing at the same time. We see that, but at the same time there are other things that are not quite ideal, I think, for Russia at this time. So it was interesting to see that. And certainly, I think, if anything, this show does bring back so many things that we remember from this time period. And I just found out it was only 2003. I'm thinking it's 2003 because Cole, who is the guy from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, who fills out that form and absolutely has to go into space. He needs that money quick. Talks about how they said, well, we can only send you up in 2005. He says, that's like 2 years, 3 years now or something. So I said, oh, this must be 2002, 2003. And certainly, Julian, that was 20 years ago. So it was a while ago. And, I think it's going to be interesting to see how this particular decade unfolds. As I said, I think robotics is going to be in there. I think this guy, Cole, is going to shine because he knows how to work on rigs. And, let's see what happens. Will there be a shift from astronauts to, let's say, somebody more like Cole? In his profession, will there be hundreds of platforms on the surface of the moon and Mars, Julian?
Yeah, perhaps. I don't know if that many are necessary, but yeah, I'm sure we're going to see some sort of proliferation of that type of thing. Although it sounds, I don't know about on Mars, it sounds like they're not really, we haven't seen what they're, other than the growth of the town area, the colony, we haven't seen what they're actually doing, as far as mining in Mars. Sounds like they're more interested in trying to bring these asteroids in. So we'll see. We'll see what's going on.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, Julian, and Scott Bartholomew makes a good point, calling Cole a red shirt. Will Cole survive in this harsh environment? He survived on a drilling rig in the middle of the ocean, Julian. Can he survive being in space?
Oh, I'm sure he can. I'm sure he can. That you don't set up as much on a character like that. I mean, if you're going to bring him in, he's going to be instrumental in something. So, but the other ones that we don't know are they're the ones who are going to get, have an accident.
Yeah, and it does kind of seem like that's the case in general. And, I'm just curious, even looking at some of these other people who are inside of well, it is a spaceship going from Earth to Mars. It's amazing seeing that happen. We do see an amazing scene of Poole kind of looking out the window, but we also see a very interesting shot of Ed, who's on Mars at the time, looking at the photographs in his desk. and then looking out the window as well, I think they all feel change is coming. There's this certain sense of change that's going to happen. And I'm really curious as how this is going to play out, Julian. I think Ed is going to resist a lot of what's happening. And, maybe Cole becomes a hero in this. We just don't know what can happen because they're doing these dangerous operations. Maybe Cole and a bunch of these other guys can also become heroes here. So I think, that particular fate for them is going to be something perhaps we've never seen before in this context. And I'm really excited by the idea of him being there. He lies on his application saying he went to LSU. And,
FSU.
yeah, I wondered, I said, I hope they never even bring that up again.
Yeah.
I want him to just be there. I think he's fantastic and amazing, and it shouldn't matter as far as I'm concerned whether he's gone to university or not. I don't care about that. I want to see this character succeed, and I think that's so important, Julian, is that they can bring in a character like Cole, and I'm like, yeah, he's going to space. He's gonna. Oh my gosh, this is so great. I love this. I love that we're seeing this, and I think that kind of excitement for a character we just saw just for a few moments, or maybe about 15-20 minutes in the episode, to get behind a character like this. I love that they're doing this, Julian. What do you think?
Oh, I'm excited for it too. You're bringing in someone who is not. I mean, it's obvious. I think the only reason that he's going in this route is because he feels that pressure of, I need to do something for my family, for my, this will get us back together. He's obviously been feeling that their family is fracturing because of what's going on economically for them, living back in his dad's place or something like that. And so he is driven to do whatever it will take, for him to help get that his family back on his feet. So I think if things had been going fine, he never would have ever thought about going out to space, because he wasn't that kind of a guy. It's obvious, since he didn't go to college, we can see that he didn't go to university or college, that working was probably something that he had to do from the start. And and working on the rigs was, probably in that area, that was easy, that was plentiful for a lot of people in the Gulf and that kind of area. So he never had to think about that. It was more important that he be working, probably because of having the kids. Not sure how long he'd been working there on the rigs, but I have a feeling that he went straight to working on the rigs because he had to, because he and his wife, they probably were like, oh, she's pregnant, we got to get married, and I got to get a job. So he's not living his life doing what he wants to. He's doing what he has to make ends meet. And there's a lot of people like that. It's interesting to see this. The first couple of seasons, we have not seen that. We've seen characters who were living the life that they wanted to live. They were, pardon me, they were the explorers who were doing, living their life stream by going out and exploring space. And now we're getting to this point where we're seeing people who are like, the economy is there, and so that's where we're going to go to work. It's not something I ever dreamed about doing, but that's where the work is.
That is such a good point. And it is also very interesting as he describes how his time on the platform was like some of the best years of his life. And I think that that's really interesting about him, is that he did like the work. Perhaps that was, only God knows what his original choice of profession was, but he enjoyed it. And I think that also speaks volumes about this character. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited, Julian, as to what's going to happen with him. And certainly, I think they've done such a great job giving us these new characters, showing us what's happened to our favorite characters. An exciting season ahead for us. Julian, any final comments about episode 1 of season 4 For All Mankind?
No, I think they hit everything fairly well. Oh, that's right. Never mind. They handled that. With Ellen, once she's no longer the president and she goes off, they made a point of saying that she got married with her former girlfriend and went off to live her best life. You know. So yeah, I guess she's like got divorced from the other guy, and after causing the fracas of the potentially devastating, could have been terrible for their her presidency. So it is kind of nice to see that she weathered that as well as she could, and uh, I don't think there's anything else that needed to be answered right away at this point. Um, I'm looking forward to this season. They've got it off to a good start, and they're continuing on just chugging along with good content, with good story.
Absolutely, Julian. And certainly they have delivered here for season 4, episode 1 is exactly what we were hoping we would see. We saw Mike Tyson. We saw, Tom Cruise and Jerry Maguire. And as I said, I'm waiting for that Race to Mars movie, Julian, along with Love in the Air or in the Stars. I'm waiting for those films. Gee, I sure hope they make something. It could be a Hallmark movie. I don't even care. But I would love for Hallmark to go ahead and tackle this, two astronauts. And boy, they really could do something amazing, I think, Julian. So certainly we are experiencing a lot of very interesting things in these episodes. And I think for one of the first times we're seeing technology that we may not have seen before. Or will see technology we haven't seen before. Let's see how those robotics work out. Let's see how those new workers, the miners with their miners, and I guess maybe even linemen work out. Let's see how it all goes down in the future upcoming episodes. Julian, I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight here to talk about For All Mankind. Julian, where can people find you?
They can find me on your Positive Fandom Network and on the Burr Network. They can find me on Facebook, and they can find me on Instagram, and Mush Jewel on YouTube. So reach out and touch me.
Excellent, Julian. And guys, of course, you can find me on Positive Fandom, my YouTube channel, which please do subscribe, like and subscribe to Positive Fandom. Of course, like and subscribe to the Burr Network as well. But you can see my channel here, Positive Fandom, right there. And I also want to give a shout out to our wonderful, wonderful moderator, Tom Jr. Jackson. Tom, you are the greatest, my moderator, collaborator, and friend. We are all good people, Tom. And guys, please subscribe to Tom Jr. Jackson's YouTube channel. He did an amazing review of Spartacus the other day. Guys, you got to check this out. And certainly subscribe to Tom's channel as well. Everybody out there, thank you so much for being here. Make sure you also subscribe to the Burr Network if you haven't done that already. And guys, I do appreciate all of you here tonight. I love all the comments you are making. It adds so much to the experience that we have here. And certainly do keep watching For All Mankind. I think it's an incredibly enriching program as well. And certainly it's exciting to see people excited about the space program. Like I said, Julian, I suspect that they're trying to give us the sense that going to space is now the norm. This normalization of space travel, and this is the new direction that our worlds are going to be going into. It'd be very interesting if that was the case, but certainly something to think about. Let's see if they can pull it off convincingly, Julian, that we believe that in 2002, in this reality, that it is normal. After all, they've got the reality show, Julian, Moon Miners, right? Who knew that was going to be a popular reality show along with Survivor and the Oscars? So I would watch it. I hope they make these shows, even if it's not real, Julian. I'm ready to watch Moon Miners. Aren't you? Aren't you? Cole will be one of the stars of Moon Miners, right? Or although he's going to Mars, he'll be
on Mars, but I think he's got to do some training on the moon first, or something like that, though.
He does, and I think. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think Survivor on the moon is. I'd rather watch that.
that is like yes, that's exactly it, Julian. I think that would be amazing, and certainly we will be seeing that at some point. Who knows, Julian? But thank you so much for being here tonight. And guys, thank you for watching us on the show. Please join us next week for our recap of episode 4. Excuse me, season 4, episode 2 of For All Mankind, right here on the Burr Network and Positive Fandom at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday next week, guys. Thank you all for watching. Julian and I so appreciate everything, guys. And remember, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always remember to please be kind. Take care, everybody.
Cheers.